Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. You can submit your own stories to the podcast by emailing us at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Impossible Mind 2065. I thought I mastered malicious compliance. Then, my wife showed me how it's really done. For this story, you need to know that I'm the kind of person who will go a great distance for a good laugh, as you will see below. I love this story, and we tell it every once in a while, even though it has been more than 20 years. I live in the US and I own an IT support company. Many years ago, I used a cell phone company called Nextel. They had this great push-to-talk feature that turned your phone into a walkie-talkie, which was perfect for communicating with coworkers in my IT work. However, their customer service was a nightmare. Anytime I needed to contact them, it would take at least 30 to 40 minutes on hold. Eventually, I had to switch to a cheaper service, which meant getting a new number. Now you can port your number to a new carrier, but back then you had to change numbers if you switched carriers. I canceled all the phones on our plan except for mine, which I downgraded to an emergency plan costing about $10 a month. I left the old phone plugged in at my office and set my voicemail message to instruct callers of my new number. The phone just sat next to my desk on a shelf, plugged into a charger, so that I could see if anyone called. I could also hear the phone make a sound when it disconnected from the cellular network, and then a different sound when it connected to the cellular network. It connected and disconnected constantly there in my office. I would estimate that it only stayed connected to the network about 50% of the time. After 6 months, I decided to cancel it. I had to wait on hold for the customary 30 to 40 minutes just to cancel my service. After telling the rep that I was always dropping off the network and that I had already switched services, they verified the service problems on my account and canceled my entire plan. I wasn't under any contract at the time, so there was no problem canceling my service with Nextel. As expected, I got my final bill. It was somewhere around $10, since that was my monthly plan, just the emergency plan, and I didn't make any phone calls. I paid the bill and was happy to be done with that carrier. Then, the next month, I got a bill for 4 cents. Yes, just 4 cents. I figured it was a clerical error and ignored it, expecting them to write it off. But no, each month another bill for 4 cents arrived. I was incredulous. I checked the postmark and saw that the postage to send me the bill was costing them 10 times more than the bill itself, and they kept sending the bill every month. I could have paid the bill, but it seemed ridiculous to write a check for 4 cents and spend more on a stamp. After 6 months, I finally had enough and decided on some very petty, malicious compliance. I decided to invest the 40 minutes on hold to call Nextel to work this out. By golly, if they wanted my 4 cents, I would give them my 4 cents. I planned to wait on hold for 40 minutes and pay the 4 cents with a credit card, knowing it would cost them more in fees. I told my wife about my plan, thinking it was the perfect malicious compliance story. But my wife, the true master of malicious compliance, suggested an even better idea. Call and ask if I could make payments on the 4 cents, splitting it into 2 payments on my credit card. Oh my gosh, I was in the presence of malicious royalty. I called, waited on hold for 40 to 45 minutes, and finally got through to a representative. The representative sounded like one of those airport terminal attendants who act like they're checking your reservations, but instead, they are writing a Stephen King-length novel. I could hear the clickety-clackety sound of the keyboard. The female representative was constantly typing as I explained that I had canceled my service, but kept getting the final bill and proposed making payments. The representative, typing away, said she'd look up my account. As she typed away at her keyboard, I explained that I had gotten the final bill and that I would like to set up a payment plan to take care of the outstanding balance. I told her that I would like to pay half on my credit card today and pay the remaining half the following month. She was agreeing with me and typing away when suddenly she stopped typing and went quiet. "Sir," she said. "Yes," I replied. "Are you aware of the balance amount?" "Yes," I said. "4 cents?" she said. "Yes," I said. "I figured that you really wanted that 4 cents because you keep spending all this postage to send me bills each month, so I'm just calling you to take care of it." After a brief silence, I heard the clickety-clack of the keyboard again, and she said that I would not have to worry about the balance because she was writing it off. I insisted on giving my credit card for the first half of the payment, but she firmly dismissed it and assured me I wouldn't get any more bills. My wife's suggestion turned a simple prank into a masterpiece of malicious compliance. I may be good at it, but my wife is on another level. And you really have to want to do malicious compliance to wait on hold for 40 minutes. OP added an edit down below. It says, "Edit, thank you to all you kindred spirits of malicious compliance. I wanted to post an edit to show what I've learned from this great community. Although I have fond memories of this story, my wife and I both laugh at the other, possibly better options of dealing with this situation. First, a couple of commenters stated that I was stupid for waiting on the phone for 40 minutes to do this. Yes, no argument there. But my first line above states that I will go a great distance for a laugh. However, no customer service reps were injured in this exercise. The conversation only took a couple of minutes. I saved the company money because they fixed their stupid error. They stopped spending more on postage than the actual bill. And I was working in my office while I was on hold. So a little time traded for a funny story. Second, some people had some great ideas for other possibilities. Most suggested paying slightly more than the 4 cents so that Nextel would have to deal with the refund. Then, Nextel would constantly have to send me statements in the mail. I like this. And if Nextel ever sent a refund check, I wouldn't cash it. I know in my own business that when a customer writes a check for a penny off, it causes me at least 5 minutes to fix. Sometimes it even takes a little longer. So this option appeals to me. A Redditor suggested taping 4 pennies to the bill and mailing it in. I wonder if taping 5 pennies would generate more issues for Nextel and give me a 1 cent credit. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called R. Crossler. It says, "These companies need to have an auto filter that just writes off balances less than the cost of sending statements. They would save a bunch of money and would be able to deduct that as a business loss." OP responded to this one and said, "I had a friend who used to work in the oil fields. He would work something like a week on and then a week off. He once had his gas shut off because of a 10-cent gas bill that he just thought he would pay on the next month's bill." Another commenter down below called Background Lemon 981 said, "Oh gosh, Nextel. My ex loved them and made us switch and her best friend switch. We're in an effing restaurant and her best friend is walkie-talkie talking with her while we are eating. And it makes a bleep bleep noise with each communication. A loud bleep bleep. And everything is on speakerphone, loud enough to be heard on a construction site. I'm immediately mortified and shout no. She looks at me like, what? Like it's perfectly normal that an entire restaurant full of people are going to listen to her have an on-speaker bleep bleep conversation with their friend. So I had to explain like I was talking to a child that this is not what grown-ups do, and she needs to take the conversation outside. That should have been a sign." OP responded to this one and said, "All true, but being able to talk to my technicians instantly was a huge selling point." This one reminds me of when companies used to send out their advertisements and they wanted something back from you, so they'd send you a postage paid envelope as well. Then you'd fill it up with all of your other junk mail and weigh it down with some sand or something and send it right back to them, so they had to pay a whole bunch for postage. You don't see too many of those anymore, so I think a lot of companies might have learned their lesson. This story comes to us from Draco Stormfang. "Want me to come see you, even though I'm sick and trying to get to the bathroom? Okay." Currently on the mend from COVID and being sick reminded me, 27 male, of something I did when I was younger, and I thought some people here would enjoy it. During Christmas break during my first or second year in college, around 19 years old, my siblings and I were in charge of cleaning up the house before we had guests over for Christmas Eve dinner. I was feeling off that day and kept running to the bathroom to relieve myself. I had the runs, really not trying to be punny. My bedroom was in the basement, but I had to come upstairs to use the bathroom anytime I needed to go. So next time I had to go, I felt like I was going to throw up. I flew up the stairs and tried to run to the bathroom, but my older sister, 22-ish, called for me from the kitchen. It went something like this. OP, come here. Okay, but can I go to the bathroom first? No, I need you to come here now. But sis, I think I'm gonna be, OP, come here right now. Understanding that I would be yelled at regardless of what choice I did, I begrudgingly went to the kitchen. My sister barely opened her mouth before I ran over to the sink and hurled into it. I don't think I ever threw up so much before in my life. My sister was pissed and sent me to my room, where I ended up spending the rest of the day in confinement. Turns out, I had a pretty bad stomach bug, and my sister had to clean up the sink I threw up in. I ended up missing out on the nice barbecue dinner my family had that night. No, it was not Christmas Eve that day. My siblings and I were just getting the deep cleaning done that day. But come Christmas morning, my sister couldn't join the rest of us for the gift opening because she was sick then. To this day, she gets mad whenever this story gets brought up and tells me I should have just gone to the bathroom. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called BobK2. It says, she gets mad whenever this story gets brought up. Don't throw it up to her. OP responded and said, these quippy remarks are half the reason I'm on Reddit. Oh, OP, we can do better than that. Wow, your story really spewed out some interesting details. It's nauseatingly clear that your sister just couldn't stomach the situation. Next time you regurgitate the story, hopefully she doesn't lose her lunch. This story comes to us from Static Jones NC. I became a victim of malicious compliance. So I build airplanes. I work for a company that builds small jets for private owners and charter companies. Our assembly floor is similar to an assembly line in that the plane will roll into my station. My crew will work on it for 8 days, installing a bunch of stuff, and then it goes to the next station. Yesterday, my floor supervisor found a bay on a plane that had a lot of noticeable FOD, foreign object debris, and went to the quality inspection guys and said something to them about making sure when they inspected our work, they point out foreign object debris. Apparently, my supervisor caught one of our inspectors on the wrong effing day because this guy spent the rest of the day giving us the white glove treatment and rejecting our work over and over and over. I literally had to wait until today when I came into work, overtime, to have a different inspector sign off my work. To be clear, there was no foreign object debris. I was getting written up if he found bits of dust in an active work environment. I logged 8 hours of overtime just to get a job cleared that I finished yesterday. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called That Helicopter Guy. It says, Part 145 QA Manager here. I would have had that inspector in my office for a discussion if I heard that was happening at my place. Yeah, we want clean and FOD free, but there's no need for a sterile field. Another user down below called Graflex01867 said, I'd have passed on the malicious compliance. If there was dust, I'd have sat around dusting for an hour before sending it in for QC again. Yeah, the QC guy was a bit of a jerk, but it sounds like you made out with 8 hours of overtime from it. OP may have gotten some overtime pay for this, but they didn't get to spend that time with their family or doing whatever else they wanted to because they had to be at work. This person who pulled the malicious compliance, they were trying to get back at their boss, but they inconvenienced other people in the process as well. Kinda heartless. This story comes to us from Don Shakar. Ask me to translate live? Fine, I will. This was more than 15 years ago, but it still makes me smile. I worked for a non-profit which was owned by a mother company. The manager of the non-profit managed to run the company into the ground financially, and the mother company considered two options: firing us all and rehiring us with no accumulated benefits and no tenure, or firing us and selling the company. This was in Israel, official language Hebrew, but the mother company were all Americans. They decided to have a meeting with all the workers to discuss the terms of our continuing to work, but insisted the discussion be held in English. The employees all spoke Hebrew, of course, and many weren't fluent in spoken English, but the mother company representatives doubled down on the language, despite the fact that many of them knew Hebrew. It was clearly a tactic to confuse the workers. In the end, the compromise was that the meeting would be held in English with on-the-spot translation supplied by our company. As the only total bilingual, I was asked to translate. I knew they were trying to sell us a rotten deal. I also knew some of their people knew Hebrew, so I could not indicate my opinion about what was said, or even use a sarcastic tone when I knew what was said was false or manipulative. So I translated, faithfully. But whenever I had to translate something the mother company representative said, which I knew was manipulative, I made a slightly longer pause before the main part of the sentence. All my coworkers caught on very quickly. The mother company's offers were rejected, we hired a good lawyer, and got nearly twice the severance pay they initially offered us. Too bad they didn't have a fine ear for speech rhythm. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called CoderJoe1. It says, "You were the hero they needed." OP responded to this one and said, "Actually, I'm really proud of another thing I did at the time. During the last half year, when they were winding things up, they kicked out the manager and put in a temp, a very strict and goal-oriented manager, and at the same time, a very compassionate man. I spoke to him and told him the secretaries would all be looking for jobs. They all knew Word but not Excel, and knowing Excel would help them secure jobs. He promptly set up a series of workshop meetings, and I taught them Excel. I know it helped them get jobs afterwards." Ah yes, knowing that you excel at Excel can really be a PowerPoint in your resume, and it can get you access to a whole new outlook on life. Basically what this story came down to was that some of the Americans could speak Hebrew, but they did not know Hebrew, and OP was able to use that to their advantage. OP, way to look out for your coworkers. I'm sure they respect you a ton for that. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.